Hey friends, it's Tatiana, and today I'm going to be sharing with you how I prepared for my first pregnancy, labor, and delivery. Now, I do recall when I first found out I was pregnant, I searched for how to prepare your body, your mind, your spirit for pregnancy on YouTube, and I don't think I found much. So I don't know if I'm just weird like that, or I'm always trying to optimize things and see what's the best way of going about this, because obviously pregnancy is a very natural process. You don't have to do anything. It's just going to, the baby's going to form whether you are being prepared or not. But I am just like that. I just like to research things a lot. I like to be very well informed. I like to know everything that can happen, that will happen, that could happen. And I like to know, like, how can I optimize this experience for myself and for my baby? So that's what this video is about. So I'm going to be going over some things that I did during pregnancy and then my labor, and then also I'm going to share with you some book recommendations that I think can be helpful for yourself as well. So this is my mama video for all my mama followers who have been asking for this since I gave birth. I'm finally getting around to doing this. Lucas is now 6 months old, so it's been a minute, but I'm finally able to get back into filming some content now that I have a nanny. Essentially, I don't know how I would be able to sit here right now if I didn't have a nanny. So we do live in a foreign country. We don't have any family here. We don't really have friends here that I would actually ask to watch my 6-month-old child. So I had to find someone to help, and she has changed my life. It's so amazing to have help. And that's why everyone told me before I got pregnant, they're like, you're gonna want your mom near you. You're gonna wanna live near your mom. Oh, you live in Panama. Oh, you're gonna wanna give birth in Canada. You're gonna wanna live near your mom. And I was like, yeah. And then when I gave birth, I was like, Mama, where are you? And my mom was a great help. So now that I'm in Panama, I don't have my mama. So I have my nana, and I've built enough trust with her that I feel confident to leave her with my son now. He loves her. And, you know, it's weird because I had this, like, it's so unfortunate that us moms, I think most of us can relate to this, where you just feel this mom guilt. And before I even gave birth, I was like, oh, I'm not going to hire a nanny. Like, I can take care of my son on my own, especially just one child. So like, maybe if I have 2, 3, or 4 children, but just one child, I'm capable of taking care of my son on my own. But after having him, I realized just because I can does not mean that I should or that I need to. I think that it is important that I am the primary person in his life for the 4th trimester. Like, he does not realize that he's a separate being from me. And so I was with him every moment of all the day, like 24/7 literally, because he would even sleep with me. But now he's 6 months old, and I see how if I'm just the only person in his life who's with him every single day, I'm actually putting him at a disadvantage, where he becomes antisocial. He has a fear of other people, of other things. And so I actually want to take him out every day. I want him to expose him to different people. I want other people to hold him. And I think it's good that he's now spending time with someone else other than me all day long, because I think that is important for his confidence. And of course, I'm making sure that, you know, it's a short period of time. I'm doing things very gradually, so that I'm very aware of trauma. And that's actually one of the biggest things that I prepared myself for going into this pregnancy. Is I researched a lot about trauma, how that happens, and it happens in childhood, and the effects of that long term into adulthood. I mean, all of us are affected, whether we're conscious of it or not. Most of us have some childhood traumas that have carried on into our lives, and that they leak into all aspects of our livelihoods, our relationships, our work life, our communication, our relationship with self, and we're just so unaware of it. And so going into this pregnancy and having my first child, I was just almost hyper aware of how I didn't want to inflict traumas on him, and how I wanted to make sure that I could be the best mother for him, so that I'm not the cause of any of these traumas. But what I kind of concluded is that that's very important. I'm very grateful and happy that I have this foundational knowledge about attachment theory and about trauma. But having said that, I'm not going to be perfect as a parent, so I'm not going to hold myself to that standard of perfection, but I am going to do my best to be aware moment to moment. That's the standard I have, is that I want to have moment to moment awareness, not just with how I parent my son, but in my daily life, because it benefits me and it benefits everything I do in my life. But I'm not always going to meet that standard, and I'm not going to beat myself up and suffer when I don't meet that standard. So that's where I've landed with all of this, because I could see myself going down the path of like, everything needs to be this way and I need to be perfect for him and yada, yada, yada. And I think that a lot of moms can fall into that trap, and then we feel so much guilt when we don't meet those standards. But just giving yourself some grace and realizing that this is part of the human experience, that we all fall short of the glory of God, and that the purpose in life is not like the destination, it's the experience of everything. And so when I am working on the day-to-day basis to just show up as my best, that is the goal. The goal is just to show up and do the best that I can. And it doesn't mean that it is going to be the highest standard every single day. Okay, so first things first is my philosophy about pregnancy is that it can be an incredibly empowering experience. And so the way I looked at being pregnant, I was like, wow, this is so exciting. When I get to the end of this 9 months and I give birth, this experience of giving birth is the most transformational experience in a woman's life. And it is an opportunity, therefore, for me to walk away feeling extremely empowered and transform from maiden to mother. And that's a huge identity shift. And so I saw that as an empowering, beautiful experience, but I also saw how around me and how I've listened to stories and friends and videos that I've watched, and just seeing how birth actually can be extremely disempowering for a lot of women. And it made me really sad. And one of the reasons why it is so disempowering for a lot of women is a large portion of that is how they are treated during labor and delivery. So whether they are giving birth at home, how they're treated by their healthcare providers, their midwives, or in the hospital by the doctors, the nurses, are they respected? A lot of people walk away from the experience feeling like their decisions weren't respected, and that birth wasn't this empowering experience that they had hoped for. And so I didn't want that for myself. And so that's what led me to being okay, like, how can I prevent that from happening? And one of the ways to do that is to be informed, is to know, what could happen during this experience, because birth is a wild roller coaster, and you can't have a plan that's just going to go according to plan, everything checking off all the boxes. That's very rare. And so it's useful to know what could happen, and then in that scenario, what are your options, so that you can provide an informed decision and you can feel comfortable and confident about that and not stressed out about that. Because when you are in labor, you have to make quick decisions. You can't just be like, okay, let me go research that on my phone. Like, there's no time for that. So if you are informed ahead of time, you're gonna feel a great deal of ease and relaxation, knowing that you already know the decision you're gonna make when these questions come your way. And I can say that that's what happened during my labor. My labor did not go according to the plan at all, like 0% of it. I had a birth plan, but I was like, I planned for a home birth plan, a hospital birth plan, vaginally, a hospital birth plan with C-section. I was like, I'm gonna be informed because I know it can go many different ways. And that was actually really useful. So people say don't make a birth plan. I think you should. You just have to be open to it not being like, if you're a home birth plan, you might be in the hospital. If you're in the hospital, you might end up in an emergency C-section. So have a plan for all of those things, because that means you're going to be researching all of those things and knowing what could happen. So my birth did not go at all the way as planned, but because I was so well informed that whenever the doctors or nurses presented me with questions, I knew what they were asking me. There was nothing that they asked me that was like, what does that mean? What is this? What is that? What are the side effects of this? Like, I didn't even need to ask them what are the side effects or what are the risks, because I was so well informed. And so I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but for me that was really, really beneficial because it just brought a great deal of ease to me during a very, very stressful time. My birth ended up in an emergency C-section, and a lot of decisions had to be made very quickly, and I didn't stress out about it. You know, to go from having the plan of a natural, unmedicated home birth to now having to rush to the hospital, to now having to have an epidural and opioids and all this stuff that I didn't want to have, and not even being able to deliver him vaginally, now having to have an emergency C-section, and then, you know, all the things that come with that. For me, even though it didn't go according to plan, I was okay with it. I actually wasn't upset. I didn't feel like So, okay, let's get into things. Okay, so the first thing I knew is that I wanted to make sure that I had a very strong body, because giving birth is like running a marathon, and you've probably heard that before, and there's so much truth behind it, because it is an enduring experience. You have to have the stamina. And so I knew that getting fit before being pregnant was very important, and during pregnancy. And that's the hard thing, is that during pregnancy you can feel very unmotivated to go to the gym, to exercise, to eat healthy. But if you build those positive habits before, then you gain that momentum. So they say it takes about 3 weeks to build a habit. So at least 3 weeks before you're pregnant, it's useful to build the habits of exercising. It doesn't have to be going to the gym. It can be swimming, it can be dancing, it can be cycling, it can be weightlifting, it can be yoga, it can be tennis, it can be whatever you enjoy. That is exercise. And it's important that you enjoy it, because then once you build a habit, you'll maintain it. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to maintain it. So finding something that you love that helps you to move your body, helps build your endurance. And then also, I do think it is useful to do some weightlifting at the gym, because you're gonna need a strong back and a strong core to carry that baby. Even myself, with all the weightlifting I do, my back still feels like it's just destroyed. I'm gonna be frank with you. But I can imagine that if I didn't do the weightlifting that I do, it would be a lot worse. Also, you know, your boobs grow, they get really heavy, so you got the weight of your boobs. You got hunchback nursing all day long like this, picking up baby in bad positions, rocking baby. Like, it's just, there's a lot of bad positioning that causes strain on your back and your neck. And so doing some form of body weight exercises, not body weight, weightlifting exercises will be useful. And so my approach was, I decided, okay, Pilates will be very useful for me during pregnancy, because it's something that I can stay in up until the end of pregnancy, essentially. It's pretty relaxing on the body. It's not too stressful on the body. And then also doing weightlifting, and then doing some sort of cardio. And I myself never have been a runner. I do not like to run. I don't know if it's something about big-chested ladies, but for me, it's just like, I'm not getting on the treadmill. I don't mind elliptical, but I just don't like stand alone, like cardio equipment. So for me, I did swimming, and I played tennis, and I rode my bike sometimes. Well, not during pregnancy. I didn't ride my bike during pregnancy, but those are usually like my ways of getting in cardio. And, you know, sometimes at the end of a gym session, I'll do 10 minutes of like Stairmaster or something like really high intensity. So 3 days a week, I would do a pregnancy Pilates. And also I was doing this again before I got pregnant. I had been working out like on and off, but rather consistently for the last 10 years. So my body, there's muscle memory. And so even for periods of time where I don't work out, or I'm traveling, or I'm unmotivated and I don't want to work out, once I do get back to the gym, I do notice changes rather quickly because of that muscle memory. So that's something to note, and is motivating, because that means that, you know, it's not all for nothing if all of a sudden you just lose momentum. So I did this Pilates class, and so I took this class from the Bell Method. I can link her below for you guys. I found her on Instagram. The reason I found her is because I was researching diastasis recti. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't causing my body more harm than good by working out. And when you get pregnant, what happens is your abdominal muscles, they have to separate. Your abs literally separate to accommodate the growing baby. This happens to every single pregnant woman. And after you give birth, they do come together, but you are often left with this gap between your abdominal muscles. And so you have to work to bring it back together entirely. I myself, right now, 6 months post-baby, I still have a 1-finger diastasis recti. So when I put my finger in my belly button and I'm laying down and I'm doing a sit-up, I can literally stick my finger all the way down my belly button. Like I can feel the separation there. And that's okay. Like with time, I'm going to be bringing things together. That's how I kind of discovered her, because she's very knowledgeable about the core and about diastasis recti, and not to further damage it. So when you are working out as a pregnant woman, you want to make sure you're not doing things like sit-ups. You're not doing anything that's going to really use your abs. In fact, just forget about anything with your abs while you're pregnant. It's just like, if you're not sure about it, better not to do it, because you can cause further damage than good. So I followed her Pilates class. It's called the bump method. And so she has it for each trimester, different workouts. So first trimester, there's workouts that you can do. But by the time you're in second trimester, you start to have a bump. You're going to be a little bit more limited. And then by the last trimester, things are quite different in terms of your mobility. So there's different workouts. So I loved her classes, and I found that I did have to challenge myself more, because I did have a level of fitness prior going into this pregnancy, and her classes are really made for everyone. So even if you've never really worked out before, you can take her classes. But it was easy for me to challenge myself by just adding weights when I needed to. So if she didn't use weights, I would use like 1 or 2 pound weights. If she was using like 2 pound weights, I would use 4 pound weights. And so I was just able to challenge myself more, because you never want to be working out and not feeling it. You want to, that's how you waste your time. So when you work out and you weight lift, or even just using body weight exercises, you should be feeling a burn. You should be feeling, and you should actually be concentrating your mind on what it is that you're doing. Don't go off listening to an interesting podcast if you can't concentrate on what you're doing, or you're not really going to get the best results. So you should be feeling it. And if you don't feel it, you have to increase the resistance or increase the weights. So the most important thing when you're working out while pregnant is your breathing. And it's just it gets to the point where it's annoying, but you're just in and out. And every time let me just wrap up. With the Pilates, I would do that about 3 times a week. So on my lazy days, I would do the Pilates, because I was like, this is how I framed it in mind. It's easy, doesn't require a ton of work, so at least I'll be using my body that day. I also did a lot of walking, so I would walk to and from the gym. Walking is the best thing you can do while pregnant, and also postpartum, the best exercise is walking, because you shouldn't even be thinking about going to the gym for at least 6 weeks. So walking. So I would do that about 3 days a week on my lazy days. Now, on the days where I did have more energy, I would do the weightlifting. And the most important thing with the weightlifting is your breathing, and that you're really tightening the core. So when you breathe out is when you do the exercise. So if it's, a bicep curl or whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to breathe in. Is when you do the action, the movement, okay? So that's important to note, and you have to just constantly remind yourself of doing that, because that protects your core, which is fundamental. Okay, so that is the exercise piece. And then just staying consistent with that. And honestly, guys, for those of you, I've had so many questions about, Tatiana, how did you snap back, bounce back, get your body back in shape? And the answer is not after pregnancy. It is during pregnancy. I knew that if I maintained a level of fitness during pregnancy, that it would help me get my body back in shape postpartum. And it was so true. I did not have time for the gym or exercise or even eating healthy postpartum. Like I literally did not eat healthy at all. And the results I have, I think, is largely in part to how I maintain myself during pregnancy. So that is my motivation for you. If you're pregnant right now, like if you want to get back in shape postpartum, it is right now that you do it. Now let's move on to the diet portion. So for myself, I was actually way more motivated during pregnancy than any other time in my life to eat clean. And I think it's because as a mama bear already, you know, when you're pregnant, you're already thinking as a mom. I wanted the best for my baby. And I said, you know what, it's not just about me anymore, it's about you. So while I can get away with eating, you know, crappy a few days a week, for you, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna make sure that you're getting the most nutritious food through that umbilical cord so that you can develop and grow optimally. And so I actually ate really healthy. And normally, like I eat a lot of chocolate, I like ice cream, like I love my desserts. I've got such a sweet tooth, you honestly wouldn't believe it. And right now, as we speak, I'm actually addicted to chocolate. I literally have chocolate every single day, but I'm okay with it. And I know at some point I'm gonna need to break that habit because I don't think it's the healthiest, but I'm also like, it's like a source of pleasure for me right now and I'm not upset about it. Okay, so yeah, so just eating healthy, do the best that you can. I wasn't like, obviously I still had, you know, treats here and there, like some ice cream, and I gave myself some leeway, but I was pretty healthy. And one of the main things I wanted to get in while I was pregnant was collagen. Collagen was really beneficial for the skin if you want to help to not prevent, but maybe manage stretch marks. Do the best you can because a large part is hereditary, but there are factors of your diet that can cause stretch marks. There's actually a book by Dave Asprey, and I think his wife's name is Lana Asprey or Lena or something like that, and it's about stretch marks. And so I read that book, and basically it talks about how you don't get stretch marks if you're having enough healthy fats in your diet. And a lot of people are very depleted. They're very high in omega-6 fats, very low in omega-3 fats, and just like taking certain supplements, vitamin E, etc., these things do have an impact. And so when it comes to stretch marks, people, they just think topically, but really that's like the least impactful thing that you can do for stretch marks. It really is, what are you ingesting and what kind of nutrients does your body have? And so collagen is a big one for hair, skin, nails, but also making sure that you're getting healthy fats. And so I did take supplements. The prenatals that I took I think are probably one of the best brands I've come across. They're called Seeking Health Prenatals, and I actually still take them. And I think that, you know, my hair has been falling out, but not dramatically. And I think that is in large part because I'm continuing to take those prenatals. And I think you for sure should continue to take prenatals for as long as you're breastfeeding, because breastfeeding takes a lot of nutrition. The baby uses a lot of nutrition from your body, so you need to replenish those stores. So taking certain supplements, but also, like, let's just go into the topic of stretch marks. What I did do topically was I would make sure to use a vitamin E oil. Vitamin E is the only thing that has actually been studied and proven to help manage stretch marks and also like sunspots, etc. And so I would get a vitamin E oil, and it's very sticky. So I still continue whenever I have time, almost every day, if I have time to shower. I put it on my boobs here where I was starting to see some stretch marks. I put it on my C-section scar, and I just rub it in, and then I put some lotion on top so that I'm able to rub it in more. And during my pregnancy, I applied vitamin E oil all over my belly. My hips is something people miss a lot of. My hips and my breasts. And I also used an oil from this brand called Ever Eden. It was the baby body oil, I think, something like that. It's from Sephora, and it's an excellent oil. And I put that all over my body as well. So my body was getting a lot of moisture, which is really important. Essentially, stretch marks, what happens is your skin is getting stretched out because of the growing belly, and there's not enough fats in the skin cells, and so they lose elasticity and you start to see the stretch marks. And so if you can make sure that you're getting enough, it's lubricated enough from the inside first and then the outside, that is one way you can help to mitigate stretch marks. So I did that very consistently while pregnant, because when you're pregnant, you have all this, like with your first child, you have all this time to do your body, right? I like totally took it for granted. Now I'm like, my showers are like 2 minutes long. So, and just on the topic of stretch marks, like I wasn't obsessed about it. You know, I was like, I kind of expected that, you know, I'm pregnant, my body's gonna stretch. Like toward the end of my pregnancy, I couldn't believe how big my belly was. And I was like, I have no idea how things are gonna look afterwards, like all of that sucking back in. But I'm okay with it. Like, I'm okay if there's stretch marks and if there's loose, saggy skin, because I'm bringing forward a human being, like for God's sake, a human being, a whole human being. Like I am contributing a human to this world, and so what if it affects my aesthetic appearance? That's like the most materialistic thing I can think of to be concerned about, is just my body. But having said that, I understand how, you know, postpartum, so much in your life changes. It can be, not for everyone, for a lot of people, it's very difficult on mama. And then, you know, the last thing, when she looks in the mirror and she just doesn't recognize herself. She sees the loose skin, she sees the stretch marks, she sees all the extra fat, and it just feels very discouraging. And so, although appearances aren't everything, and although every body is beautiful, I can understand why we want to try and maintain some form of our old selves, because our identity shifts in so many different ways, and we just want to maintain something of how we previously felt, of how we previously looked. So that's why I'm like, okay, I'm going to do what I can to help myself, and you know, beyond that, it's out of my control. And if things change, that's okay. That is part of the transformation from maiden to mother. That's part of the transformation, and to embrace that, because what causes the suffering is not how you look in the mirror. It's not really the change in your body. What causes the suffering is the way you think about it. And so reframe it. If it's not serving you, reframe it. This is the new me. I am a mother, and what a blessing it is to have been able to bring forth a child, and what a blessing this child is in my life, and what a blessing this body is. Like, wow, thank you for bringing forth my baby for me. And just, yeah, like it kind of gives me the shivers just thinking about that. Like I literally, when I'm doing my gratitude practice, every day I thank my body. Actually, you know, I'm going to give you guys this little thing. Sometimes I don't talk about these things, so it makes me sound very kooky, but it's what works for me in my life. I thank my body. I do a full body scan, and I thank my body, especially the parts of my body that I can be particularly mean to. And so oftentimes I'll start with my womb. I feel my womb, and like, yeah, wow, thank you, womb, for safely holding my child and for doing all the work that you did. And I really feel it. Like, the key with the gratitude isn't to just say things. It's about how you feel. So you think things that make you feel a certain way. And then I move on to my stomach, and I'm like, wow, just thank you, stomach, for, all the daily functions that you do, absorbing nutrients and eliminating, and the things that you do without my conscious awareness. But also, like, wow, you held my child, and it grew and it grew and it grew. And like, thank you, this skin, this elastic skin that just expanded beyond to the point where I thought it was going to just explode, and it didn't explode. And, thank you for that. And thank you to these breasts that provide milk and nutrition for my child. And I stressed out a lot about my being able to breastfeed before giving birth, because I wasn't sure if I'd be capable of breastfeeding because I do have breast implants. And, you know, it's just an unknown until you give birth. And I've been breastfeeding for 6 months now, exclusively breastfeeding. And so, wow, thank you so much for this, the nutrition and the nourishment that my child gets, like this wholesome food. The only thing my baby needs to eat to grow from this tiny little newborn that just came out of the womb to now he's like this 20-something pound baby, and he's got a tooth growing, and you know, like that, all he's had is breast milk. Wow, it's so complete. It's so nutritionally dense. And so I'll kind of do a scan, and I will just feel appreciation for every part of my body. Thank you to these hands that allow me to grab this and grab that and experience my senses and hold my husband's hand and carry my child, like, you know, and there's always, always, always something to be grateful for. And so the parts of your body that you are nitpicking on, the belly fat, the love handles, the sunspots, the wrinkles, the stretch marks, spend a little extra time there. Pay a little more appreciation. What can you appreciate about these wrinkles? Wow, you know, wrinkles are just an indication that I'm alive. You know, like, thank God I'm aging, because the alternative of aging is death. Do I want to die young? No. Wow, thank God that I'm continuing to wake up every single day, and I get to grow older and older every single day and experience more and more of this incredible life. And so you find ways to appreciate. And once you get into that state, guys, the state of appreciation, that is the magic sauce. I'm telling you, it's from that state that all good things appear. Okay, so now the next thing I want to talk about is, we talked about the body, let's talk about the mind. And so this involves, as I mentioned earlier, getting informed about what's about to happen. This is, you know, it's a lot. And so I'm going to share with you some of my top book recommendations. I'm going to preface this by, again, letting you guys know that my plan was to do a home birth, a natural home birth, not because there's anything wrong with any alternative way to birth your child. The goal is to bring your child into the world, and whatever you see fit is what is appropriate for you. You are the mama. As me being the mama, my mama decision was that for me, the best thing for my baby was to come forth at home. Reason being, briefly, and there's so many reasons, but one of the main reasons was because I just felt it was the most gentle experience for baby. You know, he's been living in my womb for so long, his whole life, and it's a nice liquidy, warm environment. And I thought, imagine if I was him. I just kind of put myself into his shoes, and I was born, and all of a sudden it's like bright lights and doctors with masks and loud noises and where's mama? Oh no, I can't see mama. And they take the baby right away, and they cut the cord, and they, you know, they wash the face, and they put the stuff on the eyes, and they suck the nose, and they do the injection with the first shot, which, what kind of baby is going to get an STD? It's only if the mama has an STD, which they test for beforehand, so it's totally unnecessary. But they just do so many things to baby, and I just felt like, if I were a baby, that would not be a great entrance into the world. And so what would be, you know, a more enjoyable experience? And I thought, well, I watched a lot of home birth videos, and I saw particularly the ones where they were birthing in water and the baby goes in the water. And when the baby's in the water, they're not breathing yet. So you can actually leave them in the water for a little bit, tiny bit. And you watch, it's amazing to watch what happens. They're so relaxed. They're kind of like, they're still like, it's like they're still in the womb. And then you just like bring it out of the water and then bring baby right to your chest. And sometimes the baby doesn't even cry, and not because they're ill, because they're just so relaxed. And it's such a beautiful thing. And then when you're at home, you can just hang on to baby for as long as you want. You can leave the umbilical cord attached, which is so important, and they're only just recognizing this in the hospitals now. It's called delayed cord clamping. Before, they would cut the cord right away. Now they delay it for about a minute as standard procedure in hospitals unless there's an emergency. When you're at home, you can even leave the cord clamping for 3 minutes, 10 minutes, as long as you want. As long as there's blood flowing from you to baby, that is their blood. So there's blood that has yet to be pushed into baby. And that helps them to build their iron stores, which is very essential for the first 6 months of their life. At 6 months, their iron starts to deplete, and that's why we have to introduce solid foods. So when you introduce solid foods at 6 months, you're not introducing cereals and pastas and things that are not nutritionally beneficial. Really, the only nutrients they need if they are breastfed or formula fed, although formula is iron enriched. So I'd say if they're breastfed, is iron and zinc and vitamin C, which absorbs the iron better. So I'm starting to feed my baby now foods, but I'm just focusing on these iron and zinc rich foods and then sprinkling some, vitamin C zest to help absorb everything, because the other stuff is just more for the baby experiencing textures and different tastes and stuff. And so it's more for fun, but they actually do need those nutrients. So focusing on giving foods that have those nutrients. But anyways, this umbilical cord is it's a magnificent thing. It's like, wow, I kept like, when you see it, it's so epic. And it's just like you allow that to pump, and when it's done pumping, it turns gray and it turns gray blue and it starts to shrivel up. So it's not red anymore. That means baby got all the blood. That's a good thing. And so when you're at home, you just have so much more control over the experience, over the process. And I think that it's like, in North America, we've been very indoctrinated to thinking that giving birth at home is dangerous. And actually, the fact is that there is no more neonatal deaths in home birth than there are in hospitals if it's done with midwives. If you're going to do a free birth at home, that's different. But if you have the appropriate medical team, I had 2 midwives in my home and a doula. And if you have the appropriate medical team, they come with everything they need. Pretty much everything that they can do in the hospital, these women can do at your house. They have oxygen, they have everything they need. The only thing they can't do is surgery. So they can stitch you up, but they can't do like a C-section. So at that point, you would want to go to the hospital. And that's why it's important that if you, like for me, I was comfortable giving birth at home in Vancouver, in the city, because I literally was 5 minutes from the hospital. If there's an emergency, I could go to the hospital. Here in Panama, I'm an hour or so away from the hospital. I wouldn't have felt so comfortable to do the home birth here. So I could do like a whole video on this topic, because I feel so sad to see how demonized home birth has been in North America and all over the world and all these other cultures. It is oftentimes the norm. Europe, for example, it's the norm to have a midwife and to give birth at home. And it's just here because we've become so medicalized. Birth has become so medicalized, and it's just become also disempowering, because now you believe that I need the doctor. I need to be in the hospital. I'm not capable of giving birth in my home. Oh my God, it's scary. I can't do it on my own. I can't do it on my own. And then that affects how you feel going into the birthing experience, right? Versus in a lot of these other cultures, it's like they have women around them, they have midwives around them, they grow up seeing birth at home, they grow up seeing breastfeeding at home. It's so normalized, and birth is not a scary event. Birth is just so common and so natural and so normal, and they are able to surrender and allow the body to do what the body does. Because the fact of the matter is that you don't have to do anything during birth. If you actually surrender and you allow your body to do its job, it's called the fetal ejection. It will push the baby out on its own. You don't even need to push. So that's when birth has not been intervened with, when you don't take medications and do all these things that will suppress your receptors and hormones. When you allow the body to do its thing, it will literally birth the baby for you. And that's because it's using the mammalian brain. It's using the reptilian brain, this part of us that's, since the inception of time, none of us would be here if this part of the brain didn't exist. And that part of your brain does the work for you. Your neocortex, your logical brain doesn't need to get involved. Your logical brain is what prevents you from birthing. Actually, your logical brain gets in the way and thinks that it needs this and that and that and that. And really the key, and this is what I really had to practice with home birth, the key is to get the logical brain out of the way and just allow the body to do what the body does. That's a Wim Hof quote. I actually wrote it down while I was in labor. That's one thing I did, is during my labor, I put inspiring messages all over my home. I put affirmations all over my home. And so things like, let the body do what the body's capable of doing. These things, they helped me to remind me that my body is capable of this. Okay, where was I going? So anyways, books. If you want me to do a whole other video about home birth, please do let me know. And again, like, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with a hospital birth. I gave birth in hospital. I thank God for the doctors and the nurses in the hospital. I thank God for the medicine that was provided in the hospital. But that doesn't mean that you write off a natural birth as well. Like, you can be informed about both, and then you can make the decision that is best for you. Because if you fear birth, then don't do a home birth. That's like going to be a very negative experience for you. Better to go to the hospital, better to get the medication. So it's a very personal thing, and there's no right or wrong when it comes in that sense. So if you want that video, let me know in the comments below. It is rather controversial, but to me, it's not controversial at all. I don't see, like, I just see, yeah, like this, there's this way, there's this way, there's this way, and you know, you have to figure out what is going to be best for you. Now, going to the books. So I'm going to share with you some books that were helpful for me, keeping in mind that, like, my intention was to do a home birth. So preparing my mind for that was very important. And one of the biggest things is just to watch videos of other women giving birth. I thought was very helpful, because it just shows you, like, this is how it works, and it's loud, and there's screaming, and there's pain, but you know what? Like, once the baby comes, it's like magically all of that just disappears. It's like, it just ends. And so part of it is like, we're coming to the finale, and just like keeping that momentum. So one thing that I did was I got this course called the Hypnobirthing course, and I got it from Audible. And it can be useful even if you're not doing home birth. Hypnobirthing Home Study Course Manual by Catherine Clark. So this is good if you want to explore the ideas of hypnobirthing, which is like, kind of the idea is getting yourself into this trance where you can't allow that mammalian part of your brain to take over, and then your body just does the work for you. So some other books that I think were good. Active Birth was a really good one, and it really focuses on why the upright position is so important for giving birth, which totally makes sense. The only reason that we lay back with our legs in the air is for the convenience of the doctors, because it's easier for them to see into the vagina. But you're working against gravity, so it's harder for you to push, and you're more likely to tear. So if you don't want to tear, one of the most important things you can do is to assume an upright position while you're birthing. I was able to do that even in the hospital, and I actually was very surprised by that I told the nurse, I was like, I don't want to push Leanne on my back. She's like, oh, okay, we have this like birth stool, which is basically like a toilet. She puts it on the bed, and I'm sitting like on a toilet and pushing that way, and that's the easiest way to push because you're using gravity, and it's also one of the ways that you can prevent tearing. So that's a good book. Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. Ina May is a midwife. She's like one of, you know, the most known for midwives. She's worked with so many people, and she has a lot of books, and she's just, you know, she shares a lot of stories in this about home birth. And so if you're considering it, it will give you a lot of confidence. So some of these other books are more about parenting, about baby, that may be helpful for you. So one of them is called Baby Bomb by Kara Hopper and Stan Tatkin. That is about how, you know, navigating a relationship after having a baby. Not easy. Then there's one called The Happiest Baby on the Block by Harvey Karp, which talks about essentially like the most important things with a newborn is, if you want to get them to stop crying and sleep, is to swaddle them, to rock them on their side, and to shush them quite loudly, and a pacifier, and yeah, that's, I mean, like it's like it works. So, and the swaddle has to be really tight. Sweet Sleep by La Leche League. This is evidence-based strategies for co-sleeping and breastfeeding moms. That's a whole other topic, the co-sleeping topic. Oh my gosh, I can make a whole other video on that too. It's another thing that around the entire world, across all different cultures, it is like the norm, and they don't even have a word for SIDS in a lot of cultures because it just doesn't exist. The Natural Pregnancy Book, 3rd edition by Aviva Romm. So this is good for how to be healthy during pregnancy. Good book for those who aren't already super knowledgeable about health, but I learned some new things. These are my notes. So good book if you're just kind of getting introduced to health. Bringing Up Bébé. This is by Pamela Duckerman. So this is an excellent book on raising a baby and the difference between European style of parenting and parenting in the West. I wrote that I would read it again. The Montessori Baby by Simone Davis and Junitha Ozodiki. Good to learn the Montessori ways. Mindful Birthing by Nancy Bardacki. The Mama Natural Week by Week Guide to Pregnancy and Childbirth by Genevieve Howland. This is a great gift for expecting parents, and I recommend the hardcover so it's easy to flip to your week of pregnancy. This is a really beautiful book, so get the hard copy of it. And Genevieve Howland, she's the founder of Mama Natural, and I bought all of their products. She's a really great resource. She's got a really great blog. I bought her course as well, her birthing course, which is on here. So I recommend her birthing course. Actually, it's one of the best resources that I had on birth. So I highly recommend her. She also has good actual products. So like right now, I use her diaper cream for Lucas. It's got probiotics in it, and it's the best diaper cream. Like Lucas has never had a diaper rash, and I'm actually using it on my rash right here too. And I use her probiotics. I use her, she has baby probiotics, which are incredible. Give your baby probiotics because a lot of babies have a lot of struggle with gas, with reflux. And also a lot of babies, after they come out, sometimes they get antibiotics, or mama gets antibiotics, and so baby gets them as well. And whenever you have antibiotics, this is good for you as well. Always follow up with probiotics because antibiotics kill your good bacteria. Probiotics help to regrow that good bacteria, and you need that good bacteria for a healthy gut microbiome, and your gut microbiome rules your world. Your gut microbiome is everything. It's like if you feel like shit all the time, check out your gut microbiome. So probiotics for babies, but the thing with a lot of probiotics for babies is that they only have one strain of bacteria, and your gut has a whole bunch of strains of bacteria. So you want to find a rich probiotic, and so her probiotic is really good. It's the best that I found. Has all sorts. It's expensive, but it's worth it. You don't have to give all 7 drops. You can give 2 or 3. And Lucas has never been constipated, and I feel like it was really helpful. So the only supplements I give Lucas is vitamin D and probiotics, and the rest I'm not concerned about. Okay. Ina May's Guide to Breastfeeding. Also, I watched a lot of videos about breastfeeding. I think that's very important to do because you have to learn about the latch, and it's very easy to give up on breastfeeding if you don't know how to do it properly. So also maybe hiring a lactation consultant can be useful. Not every baby gets it right away, and so it can be frustrating. It can be painful. For me, it was so painful for 2 weeks. Like every time he was about to breastfeed, I would I'd tense up because I knew it was going to be so painful. It felt like I was being stabbed through the nipple, like nipple being pierced, and it felt like that for 2 weeks. And so I was so determined not to give up on breastfeeding because I know it's so nutritionally beneficial, but at the same time I was like, this can't be normal. And then it got better. So I'm glad I didn't give up. But learning about the latch is important because you can help baby to have a better latch. And sometimes they don't have a good latch because they have issues within their mouth that get in the way. So restrictions such as oral ties, that's something to really look into also before you give birth, because that's something that may be an issue with your baby that your pediatrician doesn't even detect because they don't really emphasize oral ties. They don't really believe in oral ties, but maybe it's the reason why your baby is gassy all the time, or colicky, or is always constantly latched to your nipple, or isn't gaining weight properly, or they don't have it hurts while breastfeeding. These are all symptoms of oral ties. And if you know that ahead of time, you can resolve it ahead of time rather than waiting months and months and months of being in discomfort and pain, baby being in discomfort and pain, only to realize it later. So this is something to know about beforehand. I wish I knew about it beforehand, and I wish I took action sooner. And I got Lucas's oral ties lasered off, and it was such a hard decision. I was so stressed about it because I did not want to inflict pain on him. But overall, it, I think, was helpful for him. Okay, Hunt, Gather, Parent by Michaeline Doucleff. Very interesting book to explore parenting across cultures and the differences in the Western world of raising children. I really liked this book, and I'm going to be reading it again because it's more about like parenting at a toddler years. Definitely recommend that one. Supernatural Birth by Jackie Mitzi. Lots of stories about pain-free childbirth. It shows you what's possible. The Better Baby book by Dave Asprey and his wife. On Becoming Baby Wise. It's another book. Some books on transitioning to motherhood. To Have and to Hold by Molly Millwood. Motherhood and the Modern Dilemma. The Village Effect by Susan Pinker. And some books here on attachment and like trauma. This was like one of the most important things that I wanted to learn about before having Lucas, and I'm really glad I did study this. So Stan Tatkin is probably one of my favorites for this. It's called Wired for Love by Stan Tatkin. That's a great book. Your Brain on Love by Stan Tatkin. There's another book by Oprah Winfrey, What Happened to You. Raising a Secure Child by Kent Hoffman, Glenn Cooper, Bert Powell, Daniel J. And some books from Allison A. Armstrong can be helpful. How to Not Hate Your Husband After Having Kids. I got that one on Audible because I was like, I'm struggling to like him right now. And I didn't actually finish that book. It wasn't as useful as I thought. I just thought the title was kind of funny. Okay, so those are some book recommendations for you guys. Hopefully that is helpful for you. So let's move on now to spirit, so mind, body, spirit. And as I mentioned before, one of the things for me was just getting myself into the mindset of preparation, of like, I'm capable, I'm strong, I'm made to do this. All I got to do is let go. And just these type of affirmations, more towards the end of pregnancy, was really helpful for me. I stuck them all over my walls, my mirrors, my fridge, everywhere. I wrote affirmations. In fact, Genevieve Howland, Mama Natural, she has these beautiful affirmation cards. You should get them. They're really gorgeous. The illustrations on them are gorgeous. And so I stuck those all over my home, and I just constantly looked at them. I'm like, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I am those things. Yeah. And that helps build the confidence. And I can tell you, I went into labor with zero fear. And even amidst the pain, there was zero fear. And I experienced the thing is, I've always said that I'm very pain tolerant because I've been through a lot of pain in my life, physical pain. And I almost thought that childbirth is not going to be as painful as the things I've been through pain-wise. But no, my childbirth was very painful. But not once did my mind waver in feeling fear. I just felt like this is normal. This is the process. This is how it is. And it's okay to feel this pain. I'm not afraid of feeling this pain. This is part of the experience. And I think a lot of that had to do with prepping the mind in advance. Okay, let's move on. We are coming up on an hour for this video, so let's move on to the end now. We're gonna fast forward over the birth part. Again, that could be a whole other video of just the things I did to, the birth plan and etc. All the wants that I had, the things that I didn't want. I was very particular about a lot of things, but I'm not gonna go into that now. So let's move forward to postpartum. So getting back into shape postpartum, it almost feels so silly to be talking about it because it's the last thing that was on my mind postpartum. Like I was just trying to survive. But that's what you guys are interested in. And so I did talk about in a recent Q&A video about, how I got back into shape. And a part of that, unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that I just took so little care of myself. I had a C-section. I couldn't get in and out of bed. I was always holding my baby. I couldn't open the fridge. There was no meals ready. I didn't have the time or energy to microwave something. If I wasn't fed by my husband, I didn't eat. When you're breastfeeding, it takes up an enormous amount of energy, and you're burning an enormous amount of calories to produce that breast milk, especially the first few months before your breast milk regulates. And so I was producing a lot of breast milk, and I just wasn't consuming enough. And so I think that was part of the reason. Part of the reason also is after I gave birth, we were in the hospital for 3 nights. And, during that time, barely got any sleep, barely ate anything. So, wasn't taking care of myself from the beginning. And I was already in depletion because after 40 hours of labor, you're not really eating during labor. So there's just a lot of calories being burned and not reconsumed. And so I was eating a lot of protein bars as easy snacks. During the night, I would get up ravished, feeling so hungry. So I always had a handful of protein bars by my bed just so I could eat something quick. And I would say by 2 weeks, my body looked pretty much how it was before giving birth, except there was inflammation. So my stomach was still swollen, but I could see myself, everything shrinking, my arms, my face, just the water. Because there's a lot of, at the end of pregnancy, what you see is a lot of water retention in the body. That's part of the process. So don't feel too concerned about, oh my God, all of a sudden the end of pregnancy, my face is huge. It's just, that's part of the water retention. You lose a lot of that really quickly. So for me, it wasn't focused on the body at all. I did start going and doing some, so postpartum, I also used the Bell method. She has one last class, the 4th trimester. And so the 4th trimester exercises, they're more like breathing exercises. And so I would do those on the floor in my house. And it's just trying to kind of help bring back together the abdominal wall. And so the idea is you do those before you resume your regular exercise once your doctor clears you at around 6 weeks. And so I did that around 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. Around 6 weeks, I kind of started going to the gym and just did body weight stuff, but was not consistent because did not have the time, didn't have any, one to watch him. At that point, there's no way, Stefan could watch him because he would just cry all the time. So I was very inconsistent, but wasn't too concerned about it. And by that point, me going to the gym was more for my mental health than anything else. I was going a little stir crazy 24/7 with baby. So around 3 months, I guess, is when I more started going back to the gym consistently. And then just continued to do what I did before having the baby. So I went back and did the same Pilates workouts that were easy on the body. I just did body weight exercises and then slowly worked my way up to now, I'm going to the gym every other day doing weight training. I'm doing more cardio by just walking around the neighborhood. Oh, no, I gotta mention, the biggest thing I did was take walks. So unfortunately, Lucas did not do well in his stroller. So I would take 1 hour, 2 hour walks carrying him in his carrier on my body, which was really hard on my back, but also I had a C-section, so not great, but it was really helpful for me to get out of the house. And so I started doing that around 3 months, and that also really helped, I think. Okay, so I think that is pretty much it. Yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap up. So if you've stuck with me throughout this whole video, give me a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching. And if you have any other questions, let me know, or video suggestions, let me know. Hopefully this helps you. If you are a new mama, if you're pregnant, congratulations, super exciting. I will tell you that it is 100% legitimate to feel all the emotions that you're feeling. One thing that was really kind of frustrating for me after I gave birth is that everyone was telling me, one thing I will say before we wrap up, and this is one thing I did not prepare for, is I didn't understand there's this thing called the postpartum blues. And it's not something that I came across in my research. And I felt really, really low postpartum, like to the point where I thought I was depressed. And it was really hard to feel that way because I felt like this isn't me. I talked about how hard the identity shift is, but it's not just one identity shift from maiden to mother. It's also an identity shift from, entrepreneur to, someone who's working all the time to now, not being able to do the things that I was doing before for my business. And then there's the shift of, for me being this happy, go lucky girl who always sees things positively to now I feel like sad and everything makes me want to cry and I'm not enjoying my baby the way I wanted to, and my postpartum experience with my child has been robbed from me, and just all these negative thoughts all the time. And a lot of people feel this postpartum blues, and it is a concoction of the hormones that are flooding through your body. It's a concoction of the transition, of the nonstop sleep deprivation, which is a form of torture. It's a combination of figuring out momhood for the first time, baby crying all the time, trying to figure out what to do. It's a concoction of your body recovering from such a tremendous experience. It's a concoction. There's a lot of things that contribute to this. And the biggest one is hormonal. And just understand that if you are if you do go through that it's temporary, that in most cases it does dissipate by 6 weeks. For me it took like 2 or 3 months, and so it was not easy, and I felt really sad all the time. And like Lucas was my only joy. Looking at him and holding him was my only joy. Everything else felt like imagine looking at gray skies every day. That's what it felt like for me. And it was like, oh, so sad to feel that way. And so it was just a really hard time. But what I want to tell you is that it can be a normal part of the experience, and that you will get back to feeling great, and you will get back to feeling like your old self with time. And to take it easy on yourself if you feel that way. Don't beat yourself up about it. If you do feel like things are extreme, if you have really thoughts of self-harm or of harming others, then you do want to ask for help from a trusted friend, from a provider, from a helpline, because that might be something to look more into and find better support. And your support system is important postpartum. Don't wait for someone to reach out to you. You might be disappointed if you're just waiting for people to reach out to you. So if you feel like you need that support, reach out to other people, even if you don't want to, just to have someone to talk to, I think is going to help, because connecting with other people and just giving yourself someone to talk to other than baby and mom stuff is helpful as well. And I'll also say, one of the things that helps me in life a lot is finding what I can appreciate about this current thing in my life. When I'm struggling, what can I appreciate about this struggle, about this challenge? Because I have this fundamental belief that is unwavering. And it's the belief that everything in my life happens for the good. And whether I see that now or I see it 10 years from now, I just believe that there is some sort of good in it. There is something in it that the reason it's my life, there's something for me to learn. There's someone for me to help through this experience. There's something there, and maybe I don't know what that is yet. But by believing that helps me to get through that struggle. And, for me with this struggle postpartum, one of the things that I found to be grateful for was now I can have a better understanding of people who struggle with mental health, because I never really struggled with mental health before, not to that degree. And now I have, because I've been through it, I have more of an understanding of it, and I can help people better. I can empathize with people more. You can't take someone where you've never been. And so that was something, you know, something that I could pull from it that helped me to feel better about that experience. And I think that's a big thing about birth trauma as well. Some people have birth trauma. And when you look at my birth experience, the whole thing, you could easily say that, oh, well, you have every right to have birth trauma. And I felt that for a little while, but I was very aware of my feeling that of creating a trauma around that. And I didn't want that. And I'm telling you that you don't need to have that. You don't need to have trauma. Trauma is not, and this is what you'll learn when you research Gabor Mate. Gabor Mate is an excellent resource on trauma. Trauma is not about the event. It's not about what happened. It's not about the experience of what happened. This is key. It's about how you interpret it and how you were supported after it. And so for me, I was like, okay, I have a choice in how I look at this birth experience. And what's always very helpful for me is I can choose to focus. There's a lot of things in life that you can focus on that feel really bad. And they're really true. Those things all happened. But there's a lot of things that are really true that you can focus on that feel really good. And so I look at my birth now, and I don't focus on the things that feel really bad, that are all true, that happened. I focus on the things that are true, that happened, that feel good. And that helped me to be able to move past all of that. Before, in the weeks following birth, I couldn't think about my birth without crying. I couldn't talk to you about it. I couldn't talk to my friends, my family. I just brought tears. It just felt so painful. Now, there's how you know if you got over something, how you know if you've forgiven, how you know if you've gotten over a trauma, how you know if you've gotten over a challenge, is how you feel emotionally. So when you look back and think back of the experience, is there a charge? Do you feel charged? Or do you feel neutral? So now I can talk to you about it, and I don't feel not an ounce of sadness, of despair, of regret, of anger, of resentment, none of that. It's just totally neutral for me. And that's how I know I've gotten over it. And that's a good place to be, because there's so many things in life that we hold on to that it's like when you have trauma and when you have resentments, the reason that they're not useful for you in life is because you now re-experience them every time you think about them. It's something that happened in the past. The past doesn't exist anymore. All that exists is the present moment. But when you are holding on to the past and you still feel the emotions of it, it's like you experienced it all over again. And it goes through your body like you experienced it all over again. So you want to work on forgetting and forgiving those things, forgiving those people. Forgiveness is about you, not about other people. And learning to truly let go. Not Wayne Dyer. David Hawkins is an excellent resource on the practice of letting go, the art of letting go, the art of surrendering. That's a big thing that I also studied before having Lucas. That's been very helpful for me every single day of my life. Okay, guys, this is a very long video. Thank you for watching. God bless. Bye.